Did you know you might be damaging your brain every single day without even realizing it? You don't need to suffer a head injury or have a diagnosed illness for your brain to start deteriorating. Sometimes the damage happens silently, through every decision you make, every habit you repeat. Poor sleep, constant chaos, suppressing your emotions, living on autopilot. They might seem harmless, but they have a direct impact on your memory, your focus, your emotional balance, and even your life expectancy. And the scariest part? Many of these behaviors have become so normalized that we no longer question them. But today, you'll discover the 9 most common habits that silently accelerate the deterioration of your brain. And more importantly, how to protect it before it's too late. Because your brain doesn't take care of itself. It depends on what you do, what you think, and most of all, what you choose to stop ignoring. Today, you'll uncover the everyday behaviors that are sabotaging your brain without you even noticing. They're silent, but their effects are devastating if you don't take action. So pay close attention. Because habit number 1 might be happening in your life night after night. Habit 1. Poor or too little sleep. Sleeping poorly doesn't just leave you tired. It literally damages the structure of your brain. While you sleep, especially in the deeper stages, a system called the glymphatic system kicks in. Think of it as your brain's nighttime cleaning crew. Its job? To flush out toxins, waste, and proteins that, if left behind, have been linked to Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline. But if you don't sleep enough, or if your sleep is shallow and constantly interrupted, that system can't do its job. The result? Your brain becomes inflamed, slower, less able to retain information, to focus, or to regulate your emotions. And it doesn't stop there. Poor sleep also disrupts the production of key neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. And when these chemical messengers fall out of balance, anxiety, irritability, mental blocks, even persistent negative thoughts can appear. The worst part? Many people have already normalized poor sleep. They scroll on their phones until they pass out, sleep less than 6 hours a night, or live in a constant state of stress that prevents them from truly resting. And that, slowly but surely, begins dimming the lights of the brain, even if no one notices from the outside. Good sleep isn't a luxury. It's a form of brain hygiene and a powerful act of self-love. If you don't protect your sleep, your brain will pay the price, and it's higher than you might think. Habit 2. Eating ultra-processed foods. What you eat doesn't just fuel your body. It literally programs your brain. Every meal is information. Information that reaches your neurons, your hormones, and your emotions. Ultra-processed foods, like chips, candy, sugary cereals, sodas, and fast food, are packed with added sugars, trans fats, chemical additives, and excessive sodium. And all of these ingredients trigger inflammation. And when the brain gets inflamed, it starts to break down. Neuroscience studies have shown that diets high in ultra-processed foods reduce the size of the hippocampus, a critical region for memory, learning, and emotional regulation. And that's not all. These foods also disrupt your gut microbiota, the beneficial bacteria in your digestive system that are directly connected to your brain. When these bacteria fall out of balance, so does your production of neurotransmitters like serotonin. And what happens when serotonin drops? Anxiety, sadness, brain fog, and increased cravings for junk food. It's a silent but powerful cycle. You eat poorly, you think poorly, you feel poorly, and then eat poorly again. The food industry doesn't just sell you products, it sells you habits. Habits that destroy your mental clarity and hijack your energy. So next time your hand reaches for the chips or soda, ask yourself, do I want to feed my anxiety or nourish my brain? Habit 3. Digital overload and multitasking. Your brain was not designed to handle 40 notifications an hour, switch screens every 10 seconds, or reply to messages while working, cooking, and answering emails, all at the same time. But that's exactly what it does today. Day after day. Multitasking and digital overexposure are consuming your brain's attention span. Every time you jump from one app to another, You interrupt a cognitive process that wasn't finished yet, and that fragments your memory, drains your mental energy, and reduces your actual productivity. Even if it feels like you're doing a lot, in reality, you're achieving less and exhausting yourself more. Your brain needs pauses. It needs sustained focus. But when it spends all day bouncing from stimulus to stimulus, it enters a state of hyper-alertness. The consequences? Difficulty concentrating, trouble making decisions, irritability, increased anxiety, and chronic mental fatigue. On top of that, the constant bombardment of visual and auditory stimuli puts your prefrontal cortex, the most evolved part of your brain, under heavy strain. And when that happens, it's not your rational brain making the decisions, it's your impulsive one. So if you're struggling to focus, if everything feels overwhelming or nothing excites you anymore, maybe you're not the one failing. Maybe it's the overstimulated environment you've normalized. The solution isn't to disconnect from the world, it's learning to set boundaries, reduce the noise, and return to presence. Because if your attention is your most valuable resource, why are you giving it to everything and everyone except yourself? Habit 4. Sedentary lifestyle. If you think being sedentary only affects your body, here's the truth. It's also slowly shutting down your brain. Movement isn't just about fitness or how you look. It's a biological need that activates essential brain functions tied to your mental well-being. When you move, your brain releases neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins, chemicals that improve your mood, reduce stress, and strengthen your ability to focus. But when you spend hours and hours sitting in front of a screen, moving only to switch apps, your brain slips into cognitive hibernation. Oxygen levels drop, focus becomes blurry, and your ability to learn decreases. You literally think slower. Recent studies have shown that prolonged sedentary behavior is linked to higher risks of cognitive decline, memory loss, and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. And the worst part? Many people live like this for years without realizing it. You don't need to run marathons. Just stand up and stretch every hour. Walk for 20 minutes a day, or do small, mindful movements that activate your nervous system. Your body was made to move, and your brain thrives on it. So if your mind feels foggy, your memory is failing, or your motivation is fading, maybe you don't need more willpower. Maybe you just need to move. Habit 5. Chronic unmanaged stress. Stress is not your enemy. In fact, in the short term, it can help you react quickly, stay focused, and solve problems. But when stress becomes chronic, when you carry it day after day without processing it or releasing it, it turns into a silent poison for your brain. One of the main culprits is cortisol, the stress hormone. When cortisol remains elevated for too long, it begins to damage key brain areas, like the hippocampus, which is vital for memory, and the prefrontal cortex, which controls your attention and decision-making. Do you know one of the most common symptoms of unmanaged stress? Mental fog. That frustrating sensation of not being able to think clearly, forgetting simple things, or losing focus, even on what you love. Chronic stress also weakens neural connections, increases brain inflammation, and reduces neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to adapt, learn, and change. That's why accumulated stress doesn't just steal your peace, it steals your cognitive capacity. And the saddest part is that many people have normalized living in that state. Always rushing, meeting expectations, swallowing emotions, never stopping to breathe or feel. But your brain feels it. And every day you ignore your stress is a day your mind grows weaker. Managing stress isn't a luxury. It's a vital necessity. If you want your brain to stay your ally, not your enemy. Habit 6. Not using your mind creatively. Your brain wasn't designed just to solve problems or follow routines. It was made to imagine, create, and connect ideas, to build new realities from what seems impossible. And when you stop using that creative ability, something inside you begins to fade. Creativity isn't just for artists. Every time you solve something with ingenuity, imagine a different future. Allow yourself to play, invent, write, paint, or dream. You're activating essential areas of your brain that keep its flexibility and adaptability alive. But when you're stuck in the same old cycle, same routes, same conversations, same uninspired routine, your brain switches to autopilot. And over time, that makes it slower, more rigid, and more vulnerable to decline. Neuroscience studies show that creative processes activate the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, and the dopaminergic system. That means using your creativity doesn't just make you smarter, it also makes you happier, more resilient, and mentally younger. Not using your mind creatively is like owning a powerful tool and letting it rust from lack of use. So ask yourself, when was the last time you created something just for the joy of it? Because if you don't give your mind the space to create, it will default to the same old autopilot, the one you're tired of. And repeating without awareness is also a form of cognitive decay. Habit 7. Relating through complaint or judgment. The people you surround yourself with influence your brain more than you might think. But it's not just about who you talk to. It's about how you talk, where you speak from, and what kind of energy is exchanged in those conversations. When your relationships are rooted in constant complaining, criticism, judgment, or gossip, your brain enters a state of continuous low-level stress. And the most dangerous part is that this state becomes normalized. Studies show that recurring negative conversations increase cortisol levels, reinforce pessimistic thinking patterns, and weaken areas related to empathy, creativity, and problem solving. It's as if every judgment-filled word is shaping your brain to become more reactive and less aware. What's more, relating through constant complaining doesn't just affect your mind. It weakens your relationships. It isolates you emotionally, blocks authentic connection, and creates a worldview where everything is wrong and no one is ever enough. The result? You feel more alone, more disconnected, and less able to trust. And emotional loneliness, even when you're surrounded by people, is one of the most destructive factors for long-term brain health. So, if you want to protect your brain, protect your conversations. And remember, every word you repeat is also a neural pathway you reinforce. Habit 8. Prolonged loneliness and lack of human connection. Your brain was not designed to survive in isolation. From the moment we're born, we need the gaze, the affection, and the validation of others to develop. And even as adults, that need doesn't disappear. It just changes form. Neuroscience studies have shown that prolonged loneliness can be as damaging to the brain as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Yes, human disconnection is that powerful. When you have no one to share your feelings with, no hugs, no shared laughter, no one to simply listen, your brain interprets that as an existential threat. Brain regions linked to physical pain light up, pleasure and learning circuits weaken, and the risk of cognitive decline, depression, and neurodegenerative disease increases. It's not about having thousands of friends or being surrounded by people 24/7. It's about real connection, nourishing bonds, the sense that you belong to something bigger than yourself. The good news? It's never too late to reconnect. An honest conversation, a purposeful community, an act of kindness can reignite that spark in your brain that keeps it resilient and alive. Because sometimes what your mind needs most isn't more information, it's more connection. Habit 9. Repressing your emotions. Some emotions hurt, but repressing them hurts even more. Your brain is wired to process emotions, not to store them like they don't exist. When you decide to hold it in, act strong, or pretend everything's fine, you're not eliminating the emotion. You're just pushing it inward. And what happens then? That blocked emotion starts to generate internal tension, brain inflammation, neurotransmitter imbalances, and over time, damage to areas involved in memory, decision-making, and emotional regulation. The amygdala becomes hyperactive. The prefrontal cortex becomes dysregulated. And eventually, repressing your emotions turns from a defense mechanism into an internal ticking time bomb. And when you don't express your emotions, your body finds other ways to scream them out. Insomnia, anxiety, physical symptoms, addictions, unexplainable irritability. All of it is your brain saying, please, listen to me. And no, you don't have to explode or make a scene. Sometimes it's enough to name what you feel. Write it down. Share it with someone you trust. Or just allow yourself to feel without judgment, because repressing is forgetting that what's not expressed gets imprinted. And your brain deserves better than carrying in silence what your soul needs to release. Now that you know the 9 silent habits that damage your brain, the question is no longer, why didn't I realize this before? The question is, what will you do with this information? Because knowing it doesn't change everything instantly, but ignoring it, that can cost you more than you imagine. Your brain is not a machine you can replace. It's the center of your emotional life, your choices, your well-being, your awareness. And even if you don't notice it, every small action matters. Sleeping a little better, putting your phone down for a few minutes, talking about what you feel, moving your body, even if just for 5 minutes. All of it adds up. All of it protects. And if someone once made you believe that caring for your mind was a luxury, remember this. Caring for it is your deepest act of self-love. Your brain can be your greatest ally or your worst enemy. And what makes the difference won't be what happens to you, but the habits you choose to repeat. So, if this video helped you see something your curious mind already suspected, subscribe and share with someone who needs to wake up too. Because knowledge doesn't just inform, it heals, it transforms, and sometimes it even saves. See you on the next journey, NeuroCurious Minds.